RSTC Chennai Sivasatish has joined. His screen is visible, I think. He is ready with his PowerPoint. Let us start the class. Over to Mr. Sivasatish. Sir, please, you can proceed, sir. Hello. Satish, sir.
Sir, hello.
Yeah, you can start the session, sir.
No, okay, sir. Okay, you can. Okay, sir. Okay. So just be on. You can. You can. My voice is audible, sir.
Now it is audible.
Audible, huh? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, sir. Good evening, friends. Hearty welcome to the second session of this Forex webinar. Sorry for the slight delay because we have VC with the HBO because tomorrow induction is there. Today I was given 2 more sessions today and Monday evening. Monday evening I will prepare question answers for you. Today I will continue with the sharing of basics because many of you might not have worked in Forex unless you understand the basics. You can't be in a comfortable position to answer the question. As I told you, friends, Forex will be definitely getting around 15 questions in almost all levels of test. And compared to other verticals, I am repeating once again for those who came today. This topic is relatively very easy compared to other advances in LBA, Forex, capital, Basel management, all these things. It is just like trading only. Forex, nothing is there. If you can understand simply, just we need just we have to go to the basics, and 50% of questions we can answer with simple common sense because once you understand the basic concepts. So that last day covered some basic topics. Today I will continue with other basics. And Monday I will share you around 100 to 200 question answers my best possibility. Okay, friends. Now, as I told you, Forex because why? It's a simple logic for those who came to today only. India needs foreign exchange reserves to trade with the world because all the requirements we want Indian citizens we are not producing. Oil we are not producing, lot of items we are not producing. So whatever we because that's why all countries need forex and India being a populous country, being a growing country, we need much forex. So simple example, I am a family head. I need some money to run my show. What is my income? I can do some business. That means export import I can do. I can earn some money or I can ask my brother to remit. That means remittances inward, or I can take a loan from my friend. That means there's ECB like concept, or I can ask somebody to invest in my business like that. Just like a family head, India is also trying to mop up forex reserves. Common question almost all exams is what is the level of foreign exchange? Foreign exchange reserves. What is our level? These questions because there are 5 broad transactions. Every exam we are seeing one question related to current account deficit or foreign exchange reserves or our import export bill, all these things. So thus we'll start with that first today. As I told you, they're just simple. As a family, just India is having 5 types. We need forex to cater our imports because we are importing heavily, and not only in imports. We need foreign exchange, foreign capital to promote our growth. Also, we want to grow rapidly. All these things. So, what we do? How to earn money? We need some money. As of every, because even during COVID, also our forex reserves are growing because India is a strong country. World knows, even though GDP rate is negative. So, there are 5 types of transaction. Repeating a simple logic. One is when same at family level, we can take remittances from gifts to my neighbors like that. Inward outward remittances is one of the source of outflow and inflow of forex. Second is trade related for these are governed by FCRA and FEMA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act and FEMA. Then trade is governed by trade means export imports. If exports are more, we'll get more reserves. Imports are more, we'll get less reserves. These are governed by FEMA and DGFT. Then capital flows are there 2 types. One is foreign investment, second is foreign debt. So once you understand these 4 concepts, we'll have different type of regulations for all these 4 verticals, and different questions for all these four, because the regulator, but the basis is same. We want to be strong on foreign exchange. We want to have some money in our pocket to ensure that money is there at least for 1 year shipments, whatever, because we import oil, all these things. India's objective is at least for 9 to 12 months imports we must have buffer. So that definite question on all levels, but 3 to 4 and 4 to 5, foreign exchange reserves will be getting it. So there are four aspects I have. So when imports minus exports, what is the level of imports minus exports? First level is, it is called trade deficit. Very important question for trade, because the overall it is called balance of payment. There are four components of balance of payments. Every month you can go to RBI website, they will be declaring this balance of payment. Common easy questions. What is meant by trade deficit means, first every year, every month, day in, day out, we will be exporting something and importing something. The difference between exports and imports is called trade deficit, because if it might be surplus, if exports are more, it is trade surplus we'll call. Normally in India, imports are more than exports. Only during COVID times only, oil imports came down. That's why deficit, there is no trade deficit. But normally we are having trade deficit. So that's why imports will be always higher than exports. This is called trade deficit, first component of foreign exchange management. Second, we are having a lot of, because India is one of the, because of China, Indians are known for remitting money inward. So second source of foreign exchange, because in trade front, India is not building foreign exchange reserves because we are lagging. We are importing more, exporting less. So some gap is there. So always some trade deficit is there. How we are financing? We are strong in remittances. Lot of inward remittances are coming, because even during COVID time also lot of remittances happened, because nobody knows the reason, but still India inflows are coming. So that is called. So in inflows also two types I told you: current flows, non-current flows. First, current receipts and current payments means it might be current account deficit or surplus. Normally, India is having this current account deficit normally and surplus sometimes, basing on the remittances front. Some CAD, because even trade deficit and CAD are now common in India, because remittances not offsetting the trade. This is current account deficit is including of trade deficit and deficit from inflows and outflows. Even though inflows are more than outflows, other than trade, still some trade deficit is big. So India is always facing current account deficit. So current account deficit means trade deficit plus remittances surplus or deficit. That comes to current account deficit. But where non-current receipts and non-current payments, India is very strong. Lot of capital is flowing into India. So what is happening? Even though India is having trade deficit, non-trade current receipts are more. We are getting lot of income, and same way, lot of capital inflows are flowing. So that's why we are having every year some forex reserves are growing. So from exam point of view, what is trade deficit? What is current account deficit? What is meant by capital flows? And what is balance of payments? All four levels, one question definitely will come. That latest data will be released, because before December means November month ending, you will get the latest data that you go through. What is our latest forex reserves, current account deficit, trade deficit? Last week figures I will give, but before going to exam, these four levels you must definitely one question will come, particularly 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. Okay, then. So now export import I covered, inward remittances. When comes to investment, debt means one component of capital flows is debt. Very important. What is meant by ECB? ECB regulations are very important. Time frames are there. ECB means external commercial borrowing. It should not be for trade. It should be for project. A lot of entities are now eligible for ECB, external commercial borrowing. Second type of debt is trade credit. So when debt means ECB and trade credits. ECB means commercial borrowings or project finance. Other than it's a capital account financing. In simple words, ECB should go for capital financing. Some working capital finance only for part they're permitting. Normally, ECB flows will go for capital account financing only. Working capital sparingly they are permitting. Trade credit means this is where our imports are being financed. Common question: what is how many types of trade credit? There are two types of trade credit are there. One is buyer's credit, second is supplier's credit. That means When you are importing something, you don't have money, but you are having trust. There are two types of availing trade credit. One is supplier's credit, means for your import, for your export, supplier there itself, because both very important aspect. Both buyer's credit and supplier's credit are given by overseas bank only of the supplier. Very, very important. Whether it is buyer's credit or supplier's credit, the issuing bank, the funding bank is abroad bank only of the suppliers bank. Suppliers bank only funds the transaction. Supplier's credit means basing on our transaction, supplier will get the loan. Here also LOC is required, of company is required. Buyer's credit means basing on this transaction, overseas the bank will finance our buyer. For both these things, one common thing is whether it is suppliers or buyers credit, the loan issuing bank is abroad bank of the supplier. Very, very important. And the loan is what is the requirement of the loan is a valid trade transaction, and second is letter of comfort from Indian bank. If it is not there, they will not issue. Then, so on capital flows, and these are RBI and FIB permissions are required. So they're very important. ECB trade credit, VC and suppliers credit. One question definitely will come. Very important point. I told you that it is given by overseas bank only, and mandatory thing is you must be having valid LOC. Unless Indian bank gives letter of comfort, it is not possible. So this is very important point. Then very common important question now, because how many branches? Because we are having lot of branches, but when it comes to forex, as per the dealings of forex is concerned, we'll categorize the branches into three types. One is A, B, C. What is meant by A category branch? As I told you, any branch having independent nostro vostro, that means position bank, will call it in forex terms. If it is having position, that means in its name it is having own foreign exchange account, either nostro or vostro. That branch is called foreign exchange branch, and they can deal all types of transactions. Why? Because if any bank, any authorized dealer will cover, how to classify their branches basing on their forex. Now it is in the bank's hand only. Earlier RBI, now bank, any bank can form any number of A primary branches, no problem. But what is meant by A and B branches? They have to notify to RBI, because A and B branches need authorized code, AD code. Authorized dealer code will be given only for A and B branches. Very, very important. Bank can form any number of A and B branches, subject to RBI will approve automatic only now. But what is the difference between A and B branch? First, A and B branches will get AD code. This is mandatory for any exempt transaction, trade transactions. Our exporters or import, our customers have to quote our AD code, just like big code, IFSC code. AD code is also code given by for dealing with it's an authorized dealer code given for A and B category branches. What is the difference between A and B branches? Means A branch will have independent nostro vostro account in its name. ID Mumbai, foreign departments are there, and then so they are called A category branches because they have account. What is meant by B category branch? B category branch means it is also DB branch. It can handle all types of foreign exchange transactions. It will have a valid AD code, but it will not have position. That means it will not have any for nostro or vostro account. Very, very important. That's the difference. Is only both are authorized dealers. Both will have AD code. The one will have position. One will have. They will not have. B will not have position. C. What is meant by C? All other branches are C branches. Very important. All other branches are also permitted to do foreign exchange transactions where AD code is not required. Don't think that you are not barred. You can also handle. You can handle through either B or A. In technically speaking, all branches of Canara Bank can handle all types of transactions. This NR remittances, this currency, all these things, C branches also can handle. But they have to share, because within overnight, within same day or overnight, they can't hold the foreign exchange, either bill or currency or traveler's check, not beyond overnight. They have to send them to nearest B branch or A branch same day, or next working day they have to send it. That means, technically speaking, all branches also can deal, but they don't have AD codes, they can't independently handle. They need the help of B or A branches. Instead of saying we can divert them to B branch only. So this is very important classification. A, B, C branches you want to understand. Same way, authorized dealers are persons. RBI, as per FEMA, RBI is authoring. RBI will not do any foreign exchange transaction. So it has delegated the power to banks. There are three types of authorized dealer. Actually, RBI will not call them as dealer. You can see any RBI circular start with the AP series only. That means authorized persons. But in collector we have authorized dealers. There are three types of dealers. It is not watertight, but normally AD1 is significant. AD2, AD3 only economic purpose will put like that, but they are not strictly AD2, AD3. AD1 means all types of commercial banks. In simple terms, they can handle all types of transactions for themselves and for customers also. Canara Bank can do any transaction for themselves, for itself and customer. AD2 means it is not as per really AD2. Second category of branches, the same like NABARD, Exim Bank, all these things. They are empowered to do foreign exchange transactions, but they can't do customer transactions. Very important. All types of transactions for self only they can do. AD1 means you are empowered. You can do any transaction for yourself. It is simple, colloquial, because this is only a layman. Technically, we can quote differently, but for newcomers who don't have foreign exchange touch, it's simple definition. There are three types. What very important, authorized dealers, because RBI deals in foreign exchange. RBI will never deal foreign exchange. Only to support only, to extend support only. Only RBI empowers banks to deal in foreign exchange. Those persons are called authorized persons only as per RBI parlance, but colloquially use dealers. Normally AD1, all banks, nationalized banks, all these things are called AD1 branches. That means they are capable of doing all transactions for themselves. Canara Bank can book a forward contract for itself. It can hedge for it. It can also deal with customers. AD2 means other second category means they can also do all transactions, but they can't do for customers. They can do only for self. Third one, very important, common. One is full-fledged money changer. They can do both buying and selling. Restricted money changer means they can only buy. They can only buy. Selling they can't do. So in airports you can find money changers. They will only simply buy. Restricted money changers means they only can buy currency from a tourist like that. Full-fledged money changers means they can do both buying and selling. So this is about authorized dealers. That ABC is about authorized branches. So any branch, only AD1 branch, that too A and B. AD1, A and B branches only can handle independently foreign exchange transactions. Very important. Other branches come because even they should not entertain. If they can actually entertain normal deposits. So this crazy where AD code is not required. But any foreign asset, foreign currency asset with them must be sent to AD1 ARB branches. This is about branch types. Okay. Then before going to the trade credit, all these things, we must understand how export and import take place in India. First, what are the steps involved in exporting goods from India outside India? What are the steps involved for goods importing into India? First, very important. We'll discuss about first imports. How import? Because we are having multiple types of ports, whether it is a land port, sea port, and no, don't think it is a seaport, airport. Even domestic also, inland also are having ICDs. Inland container depots are there. There are also quasi ports only and border ports, because ICD is also a port only as per customs parlance. ICDs, inland container depots, this one seaport, airports, all these cargo terminals. Cargo will, because unless it has to land in cargo, any port only they have to land. Before landing, through air or ship, before landing they have to submit IGM, Imports General Manifest, to the customs authorities. If it is air or sea cargo, even before the arrival of the consignment, they have to submit IGM. That means Import General Manifest to the customs authorities, detailing the details of consignment they are holding. Then after when the customs is loaded, then after verifying the IGM, they will issue an order called entry inward order. Very, very important. Unless this order is given, they can't unload. Then they will permit, they will verify all these things, IGM, everything. Then they will permit you to entry inward. You see the steps, because once you understand the steps, you can find the advantages of the privileged customers in Forex. So this is a very important aspect, because how imports and exports, the procedural aspects, unless you understand, we can't go for PC, PCFC, all these import bill. So second example, because second step, first is IGM. Second is entry inwards order. Very important. They have to issue that order. Then only they can unload the ship. Everything. Once unloading happened, customer has to file bill of entry filing. Very, very important. Bill of entry filing. It is first I will discuss about manual method. Then I will tell you about EDA method. These are steps involved. Bill of entry filing. Then when bill of entry is filed, then once again it is checked with customs appraiser will check with cargo everything. He may go for check or he may first he may ask you to pay the customs duty. Or sometimes they will first ask you to appraise the value and then go for customs duty. It is based on your report, not report, based on your track record. So after bill of entry is filing is there, they will go for inspection basing on verification, either 100% verification or random checking. Then only they will ask you to pay the customs duty. Once customs duty issued, after that payment, they will sign the bill of entry physical copy. They will give copies of bill of entry. Then after this, everything is once again they will check to customs shed. After confirmation of bill of entry, payment fees, everything, they will issue out of charge orders. So it is multi steps are there. Arrival of cargo, you have to file import general manifest, then entry inwards order is there, bill of entry filing will be there, verification before or after check, then payment, then bill of entry. Once again they will go, they will issue out the check and now they will issue out of charge orders after ensuring that you have paid entire customs duty. So sometimes this process may take months time. So you can go for 3 months time is there and you can extend. In such time you can find bond bill of, one technical term is called bond bill of entry. That means you are not laid the cargo. You are asking them to warehouse the consignment in port itself. That is called BB, bond bill of entry, we'll call it. So these are the steps, very cumbersome steps. Really, that's why it used to. It's a nightmare for importers to clear the cargo. You might have seen some big corporates. They will have cargo departments to clear cargo. All these things are very cumbersome. Now it is simplified. Now through IceGate, I told you IceGate package. Even before arrival of cargo, party can file online bill of entry. That is the beauty because that much liberalizing we have done. Sir, hello. Good. I'm going to slow down. Okay, okay. My time okay, slow down. Okay, okay, sure. Sure, sure. I will slow down. Slow down. Okay, definitely, definitely. The time constraint. Okay, okay, okay. Friends, somebody just asked me to slow down. I just come because just due to time constraint, I started rushing. Okay, I'll just little bit come slow. Friends, because we discussed about inflows, all these things. Now, imports and exports form very important aspect of this foreign exchange trade because unless we are thorough with the procedure first, you can't understand what is a single star house, second star house, what is forfeiting, all these things. So first we'll discuss. We'll analyze ourselves. No, we'll sensitize ourselves about import procedures first. How India imports into India comes. Any cargo is there. What are the steps in importing into India? First one. I told you there are 3 types of ports commonly because one is seaport, second is airport, third is ICD. These inland container terminal port will be there. So it's a landlocked port only. All these things, cargo has to be arrived before a customs appraising officer only. Even before arrival of cargo, all we have to the ship, the captain of the ship or pilot of the pilot of the plane. They have to file even before arrival of the cargo, arrival of the plane or ship. One document called Imports General Manifest (IGM). This is mandatory. It contains what is the cargo they are carrying, what they are going to unload, everything. This they have to then, after verifying all these details, then only the customs officer will allow them the entry inwards order will be issued. Entry inwards order will be issued. Once it is issued, then we have to file bill of entry. Then bill of entry filing, then they will check once again. There also one appraiser will check. There how many layers you see. First import general one officer will check. Then entry inwards order also. After bill of entry filing, appraiser will come. Customs appraiser will come. It's a nightmare stuff. They will verify randomly cargo. They will inspect either they want to open entire consignment or some consignment. Basing on their appraisal, they will permit you to pay customs duty. After payment and customs duty, then only you can go for. Once again, you have to go for this one, customs officer appraisal. Then they will check once again the payment of duty, everything in order. Then they will issue out of charge orders. There are 3 levels: IGM, entry inwards order, out of charge orders. Once only out of charge orders issued, you can move the consignment out of the port. So this much procedure is involved, and It is not easy, and normally customs also for bulk cargo, all these things, they will permit 3 months warehousing in port itself. 3 months warehousing in a, and they will extend also. Some in such cases they will file bond bill of entry because they have time. Every time they can clear something and they will pay actual bill of entry by paying the fees. So that is called bond bill of entry. And once it is paid, every customs duty is paid and out of charge orders are issued, you can clear the cargo and bring outside. This is how imports are handled. But now with the introduction of ICE Gate package, Indian Customs Electronic Gateway package, importers cargo will follow that marine liner will file online IGM online. We can also, before coming this in order, now we can file bill of entry online. So customs with they are matching online. So they are fast following the steps. They will also verify manually because basing on the track record, all these things. This process they have come down. All things will be happen, but they are fast following because instead of you are filing bill of entry there manually, all these things. They are cutting the red tape. You can file the bill of entry online, take it there. They will verify once payment also they will give issue online. You can pay online payment. You can get it. Now the turnaround time is very much reduced. So this is about import procedure. But the steps you must understand: cargo, entry, inwards, all these things are they're still there, but time frame changed. Same way, exports are the same thing. Reverse exports also. Whenever a flight, everything before takeoff. Imports before landing. Exports before takeoff, before leaving the port or before onboard, before they arriving, they must submit exports general manifest filing with the customs. Now exports is simple. Then simultaneously we can also file because we have booked that we have to file shipping bill. Then one shipping bill is filed, and with that shipping bill copy in manual ways, once export journal is there, you have to take the cargo for checking. Same reverse here, cargo will be checked. They will be appraised. Any custom duty how to pay, they will ask you to pay all 3-4 times because they will check. First you have to file the shipping bill in the counter. They will issue manual counter. They will issue shipping bill copy. Once cargo with cargo, they will check and appraise. And then after 2 layers of checking, they will issue let export order. So here only 2 are there. There 3 are there. Imports, there are 3 documents required: IGM, entry inwards order, out of charge order. Here it is only because only 2 steps are there. EGM you have to file. Then cargo checking, everything is over. The customs officer will issue let export order. LEO will call it. LEO will call it. Unless LEO is there, let export order is there, the cargo will not be onboarded to the ship. Very, very important. So exports come with it. Even now with the introduction of IceGate, both the filing of shipping bill or bill of entry is online. They are also checking randomly through online only, and they are giving you the form, relevant form for paying challan. You can that also can pay online. Everything is streamlined, but the process is litmus cumbersome because checking will be there, and there out of charge. Here Leo. These unless out of charge is there, you can't allow inward. Here unless Leo order, you call it Leo order. Let export order is there. You can't onboard the cargo to the ship. This is one aspect. Okay. This is how export import take place. Now other very important aspects are, we'll discuss LC later. Now we'll go for Incoterms. Okay. One second, friends. Friends, these 11 terms will stress some time because unless you are thorough with these 11 terms, Incoterm, we are expecting 2 to 3 questions because there is variance in Incoterm this year. For any foreign exchange transaction, for anything export imports, before going to LC topic, you must be thorough with this Incoterms. These are international commercial terms. Incoterms will call them, issued by International Chamber of Commerce. There are 11 terms only. These 11 terms only govern the world trade. World trade is governed by these 11 terms. So you must be thorough with these 11 terms. All levels, one question will definitely come. And particularly 3 to 4 and 4 to 5, these are very important because there is one change also from 2010 to 20. And even before going to LC topic also, you must understand the consequence of these terms. So there are 4 terms for, because Incoterms define what are the roles of buyer and seller in any trade transaction. Very, very important. Their 11 terms are 3 letters, all are 3 letters words only. Ex work, free carrier, all these things. I have shared this slide also because DHL has prepared a nice chart. That's why I shared it to sir. So these 11 terms we'll discuss now. Because any doubts are you can repeat also, no problem. But you must be thorough. All must be thorough because whatever you are doing in any trade transaction, is small words, any word replace also will cost us huge value because it will implications are very huge. Because the cost of the goods from X work will FCA will vary a lot. So I will discuss their first 4 terms. We call them as X work, pre-carrier, CPT, and CIP. Very important. These are all these 4 are called seller terms because they are favorable to seller. X work means seller has no obligation. The buyer will buy goods from my shop, from my place. That's all. I don't have any obligation. In any export transaction, it is good to have X work contract because what happens in the terms, suppose if somebody wants to buy a pen from you, he will come to your shop and buy the pen. So in any Incoterms are trade terms. They define the roles and responsibilities of buyer and seller. So in simple terms, these 11 terms govern the world trade. So we must be very careful and we must know all these things because very important to proceed further. So first there 11 terms total. For first 4 terms are sellers favorable terms. Remaining 3 terms are buyers paradise terms. Last 4 are waterway terms. There are 4 waterway terms are exclusively for some of you might be knowing it. Excuse me because but somebody had to explain because the multiple persons are from various locations are joining this webinar. We think that most of the people don't know this term. Like that I proceed. If you are knowing it, please excuse me because it will be boring for you. Okay. So X work means here the seller has no responsibility at all. The buyer will come to his shop. Buyer will come to his godown. His role is only he'll pay the money. I will show him the goods. He has to load everything. He has to take care. So it is the simplest form, easy for the buyer. I can quote. So if I am quoting a pen X work 10 rupees, this free carrier means here seller is getting one more responsibility. Not only selling, he has to load onto the carrier of this buyer. Here seller is no responsibility of finding the buyers everything. Only thing is he has to load onto the carrier of the buyer, maybe ship, maybe or something. So here also seller has no responsibility. Everything is finalized by the buyer only, but he has to pay loading charges. That means suppose you are a rice dealer, your shop is in a small lane. The buyer's vehicle is a big lorry, he came up to the main road. From your shop, you have to arrange to some Tata A something, but to load onto the buyer's vehicle. So that is called free carrier. Here from X work, seller no responsibility at all. Free carrier, I have to pay loading charges. I have to arrange either loading or up to I have to. It is my responsibility to load onto the buyer's vehicle. Third term, here some more responsibility. Carriage paid to. Here also everything is arranged by the buyer only or seller because, but I have to share. Suppose I am sending one good from Delhi to Chennai. What is the buyer may say? The freight is 10,000 rupees. You share up to Jabalpur in between. From that means he has to pay some. He has to share some transport charges only. Here also it is seller's terms only. Anyone can find the carrier, but the only thing is up to some extent he has to pay carrier charges. Or simple terms he has to share the cargo charges. CPT is also a seller's term because there is no responsibility in the form of seller. Not many obligations are there. Buyer has to book his truck, everything. Only seller, what seller has to do? He has to pay carrier charges. That means transport charges up to some point. Suppose Chennai, I am selling some goods to Delhi guy. I will say carry CPT up to Hyderabad. That means up to Hyderabad I will arrange. Even conveyance also I may arrange, buyer will arrange. But my responsibility is I have to share the charges up to Hyderabad. Carriage I have to pay, that's all. It might be higher buyer. If it is comfortable for me, I will use my lorry. Or if simply I will share the money to the buyer. There is no obligation on the seller. He has to only share the carriage charges. That means transportation charges. Then one more last word is CIP. Here, apart from not only carriage, he is sharing insurance charges also. So these first four are called buyer favoring, seller favoring terms. You must simply X work means my shop charges. Pre-carrier means my shop plus loading charges. CPT means my shop plus loading plus transport up to some point. CIP means shop loading transport plus insurance up to some point. So these 4 points are very important from seller's point of view. So when our customer is exporter, we have to always advise him to go for any of these terms only. Then remaining 3 terms are there. These 11 terms you must be thorough. First X work, okay, over. Now remaining 3 terms are DAP, DPU and DDP. Earlier in Incoterms, earlier version is 2010. There all 11 terms same, almost same. Only one change is instead of DPU, earlier it is DAT. One term is called DAT is there. Very important for 4 to 5 and 3 to 4. Only change in Incoterms is DAT was replaced by DPU. All 11 terms same, 11 only there. Only thing is earlier DAP, DAT will be there. Derivative terminal is there. To avoid that ambiguity, now they told they replaced DAT with a DPU, delivered place unloaded. These 3 terms are delivery terms. Here, what is happening? The responsibility of delivery of goods is shifting to seller. So earlier 4 terms, seller has no responsibility. Now in these 3 terms, seller is having more. These are buyer's paradise terms. Buyer is comfortable, seller is at risk. DAP means he has to deliver at a place. That means he has to find carrier, cargo clearances, everything he has to take care. For DAP Hong Kong means I have to clear customs, I have to find LVO, everything I have to manage here. The DAP means DPU means delivered at place unloaded. DPU Hong Kong means I have to deliver up to Hong Kong port. Not only that, I have to import. I have to file a import manifest there. I have to file a bill of all this bill of everything. I have to ensure up to unloading my responsibility. So because the seller is being burdened. Not only freight DAP, not only freight DPU means at some port unloading also my responsibility. From there only buyer will take the cargo. DDP means much more costly. Not only freight, not only unloading. I have to pay all the customs duties there, and I have to clear the cargo also for him and deliver to that party. So these are the 7 Incoterms, multimodal terms we call them. First 4 are buyers, sellers favorite terms. Last 3 are buyers favoring terms. Because the last only 3 terms are related to delivery terms. We call them DAP, DPU, DDP. Very important. And the only change from Incoterms 2010 to 20 is DAT is replaced with DPU. Earlier it is called delivered terminal. There is some confusion. Terminal means the unloading is there or not. To avoid that ambiguity, they made it as delivered at a place unloaded. So unloading charges also for me only, seller only. Last one is duty paid. So these 7 terms you must be thorough because LC, the main important in LC terms, because they will give what is the value of the consignment terms. FOB Chennai, that means one varies. CIP Chennai means the cost will vary. When you get one LC, inward LC, basing on this, suppose I am exporting some rice. My export price may be only per kg 50 rupees. He is asking loading, I have to charge 51 rupees. He is asking CBT up to Chennai, I have to load some more rupees. Like that, basing on the Incoterms, the value of the merchandise will change. If the party is asking DDP quota, you have to arrive, you should know what is the custom duty there in Hong Kong. The party is asking, suppose say any Singapore party is asking to import wheat, DDP means you have to arrive at the customs duties in the Singapore port. So all these things you have to load into a price. That is a very, so these 11 terms are very, very important. And last 3-4 years, all exams we are getting one question from this. So you should not, because don't fumble. Very simple. We by heart once again. X work, free carrier. Just remember like that. Then carriage paid to, carriage insurance paid to. Then delivered at a place, unloaded, and fourth delivered duty paid. Then remaining 4 are exclusively waterways. These are for inland and outside, abroad, waterways. These 4 are called waterway terms. First and foremost is FAS. What is FAS? Free alongside ship. Here, there is no responsibility on my part. Ship is there. I will bring the consignment up to the destination. That's all. There is no botheration or no responsibility on my part to load it also. FAS is the simplest mode of selling goods, because I will send my consignment or cargo up to port only. My port, in my port only, because I am exporting some machinery to Germany. The contract is FAS Chennai. FAS Chennai means I am very comfortable, because I will deliver the cargo in Chennai port. I can manage and deliver. From there it is easy lookout. It's a favorable term. FOB means same like that. I have to onboard, free onboard. It is free alongside ship. Then it is free onboard. Free onboard means loading also I have to take care. Very, very important. Along with this one, loading also my concern. That means I have to add this price to the loading, the consignment. So here in both these terms, liner is of not my responsibility. In FAS and FOB, to find out a marine liner, airplane, everything, I don't have any responsibility. Seller is not having responsibility. Very important. Buyer only is arranging consignment, everything, cargo, everything. Only thing I have to ensure is I have to bring up to the liner side, or I have to load onto the liner side. So FAS and FOB, here it is, they are called seller's terms, because there is no responsibility on the part of seller. Only is bringing cargo up to the ship or loading onto the ship. Very simple. Then 2 more terms are there, CFR and CIF. These 2 are buyer's terms once again. I have to pay cost and freight. That means it might be my liner or his liner as the terms of trade. So marine freight is very costly. That I have to factor. If it is CIF means not only for freight, I have to ensure that cost, insurance and freight. That means not only freight charges I have to bear, I have to also bear insurance charges also. Marine insurance is very costliest. So this is also very important aspect. So these 11 Incoterms, how much you are strong, that only because you exam point of view also, you must be very thorough. And a definite question. One question is assured. So I'll just repeat once again for your convenience, and we'll go to other topic. Okay. First one is how to remember them easily. That total 11 terms. 11 terms, out of it 4 are exclusively waterways, 7 are multimodal terms. First 4 are seller's terms. First work is X work means X showroom price. We call it a car showroom. What we call a X showroom price. That's like X works. X work means my shop price. That's all. Second is free carrier. When X work free carrier, what you have to add? X work is 100 rupees. Loading is 10 rupees. FCA should be 110. Simple logic. Question is my X work price is 100 rupees. My free carrier, my loading charges is 10 rupees. So what is free carrier quota? I have to quote 110. Suppose you ask transport up to Guindy from Chennai. It is 50 rupees costing. I have to quote 110 plus 50, 160 for CPT. If insurance is 10 rupees, I have to add 170, I have to quote. This way you remember. X work, no 100 rupees. Free carrier, 100 plus loading, 110. CPT, 100 plus 10 plus, I have to add carriage charges also 50, 160. CIP quote, X work plus loading plus carrier plus insurance, 170. Like that, you have to arrive. So these four you remember like that. Then remaining three, these are buyer's terms. They are delivery terms. There it is risky because when you are importing something, question is like that. When your customer is exporter, what will you advise? I will advise any of the first four terms. When your customer is importer, what will you advise? Importer means I'll advise any of the following these three terms. It is delivered at a place. That means one place. Delivered DPU means at a port and unloading also my responsibility. DDP means not only up to port unloading, I have to pay customs duties also there. So simple. My consignment cost is 1 lakh euros. Unloading in Frankfurt is this one is you take 10,000 euros. What is my DPU cost? 1 lakh 10,000. Customs duty is 20,000 euros. What is my DDP cost? 1 lakh plus 10,000 plus 20,000, 130. Like that you have to arrive because they're asking sums. Basing on DAP, arrive at DDP. That means you have to add loading, unloading plus customs duties. This is about multimodal terms. We are having for this one. These are common terms they're asking. Don't fumble. FAS, free alongside ship. FOB, free on board. This you know it. So my FAS is 1 lakh. Ship loading charges are 30,000 rupees. What is my FOB quote? 1 lakh plus 30, 130 I have to quote. Then my FAS cost is 1 lakh. Loading charges 30,000. Marine freight is 20,000 rupees. What is my CFR quote? 1 lakh plus 30 plus 20 you have to add. 150 you have to add. That is 150 is your quote. Insurance is 20,000 rupees. The same you get 1 lakh plus 20, that 10,000 like that. You at 170. So these terms you somehow by heart I share to our group also. Very important. And assured one corner 2 questions. This simple sheet definitely 2 questions assured. All levels. So easy mark. These 11 terms we are getting definitely 1 mark. So make it, don't miss this mark. That's why I stressed once again. So this is very important. Then we'll go to our regular topic. Hope you understood this concept. If you want, I will repeat once again, but I think not required. Very simple, 11 terms only. Nothing is there. Don't think of foreign or inland. Just think as a buyer seller. What the responsibility shared between buyer and seller. That's all. Don't forget the word foreign exchange. It is only simply trading, simply money management. That's all. Okay. So what is the in global foreign exchange? Very important concept is called bill. Bill of exchange we call it. What is meant by bill? You might be knowing what is the difference between bill and check, because this is a very important aspect. What is meant by a bill? What is meant by a check? Because we forget NI Act for the time being. Because foreign exchange transaction, any export import transaction, we do not call foreign check or this one. We'll call import bill, export bill. What is meant by bill? It is not just bill of exchange. Bill is a set of all documents. But bill is the first and foremost document in foreign exchange documents. So what is the meaning of bill? We know NI Act, but simple terms, bill is reverse of check. In layman terms, now what is bill? When check, who will give check? If I want to give money to you, I have to give money to you. What I will do? I will pay you cash or give you check. What you can do? You can issue, you can raise a bill on me. Simple. Bill is nothing but reverse of check, obverse of check, because always check flows from whom? Because who is deficit to surplus? Because we are with because I owe you some money. I can give you check or cash. What you can do? How to settle the check? Check is one mode of settlement from buyer to seller or borrower to lender. But in all of trade transactions, this buyer to seller concept will not be there. Always the instrument flows from seller to buyer first, because seller is selling the goods. So what he will do? He will raise a bill. Bill is always drawn by a seller. In just we forget NI Act. Simple. For a forex terms, bill is an instrument which is reverse of check. Bill is check is issued by buyer to seller. Bill is raised on the buyer by seller. Both are paid by the buyer only. Beauty is either bill or check, both are paid by the buyer's bank only. What happens? Buyer will issue check. This fellow will take to his bank and present. Buyer's bank only will pay. Buyer will raise a bill on the seller will raise a bill on buyer. Even the bill comes to the bank, bank will debit the buyer's account and send the money. So settlement of the trade will happen only at the end of the buyer's bank. But instruments, there are two instruments. One is check, one is bill. But as far as foreign exchange is concerned, bill is only bills. So bill is the instrument drawn by whom? It is always drawn by buyer. On whom? Seller. Who will pay the bill? Buyer's bank. So this is very important. Always bill must be in sync. There is no fixed format of bill. Anything, any format you can use in foreign exchange. But parallel says you must quote the exact matching term with invoice. Bill must be followed with invoice. In foreign exchange, bill and invoice must be same. Amount should be same. So bill is the fulcrum of all foreign exchange trade transactions, whether import or export. Is the first and foremost document. It is always drawn by the exporter on importer. That is very, very important. This is a very important point. Bill is always drawn by the exporter and importer, or exporter and importer's bank with an LC bill. This is very important. Okay. Then we will come to now LC mechanism. What is meant by LC? Most of you are knowing, but I'll repeat once again. You might be knowing always the word LC is the source of bread and butter for the banks. Not only India, globally. Trade is the, because don't think that we are getting money from deposit advances. World trade is funding our food. World trade is funding our dinners. Because buyers and sellers don't trust each other. If they trust each other, we are gone. So always buyer wants merchandise first. Seller wants money first. This is the common conundrum you and I know. Buyer always wants merchandise first. First send me the goods. Seller always wants money first. This is a common for any trade transaction. So what we will do? They don't trust each other. Then by LC the mechanism to assist them. We are into, because buyer is having what risk? He is having a, because he is also having a risk, buyer, because if he sends money advance, you don't know whether the merchandise will be reaching him or not. Buyer is facing shipment risk. When he pays money, he is not sure whether his money is misused, whether his money is honored, his trade is honored, and shipment will happen or not. If seller shares shipment first, what happens? He is scared of this risk. So buyer is having shipment risk, seller is facing settlement risk. If I go send goods first, whether that fellow will pay or not. So to mitigate these two risks, settlement and shipment risks. Shipment risk is from the buyer side, seller side it is settlement risk. To mitigate these two risks, we are issuing LC. LC is the mechanism. What we are doing, we are stepping in. We are a buyer's bank. What we are saying, friend, you send the goods to him. LC is issued by buyer's bank always. What it says, this is the trade transaction between you. You are worried about shipping risk for buyer's side, settlement risk from your end. So don't worry. This trade transaction, basing on this trade transaction, I am putting in a structured format. LC I am issuing. This transaction is agreed by you both, because the foundation of LC is an underlying trade transaction, agreed trade transaction between the buyer and seller. This is very important. LC issued basing on an already settled underlying trade transaction between the buyer and seller. Without that, we can't issue LC. Letter of credit is issued only when buyer and seller already agreed on some terms, and when trade transaction was signed, took place. But to prevent this settlement and shipment risk, we are issuing LC. So first and foremost thing is, buyer and seller must have one trade transaction, agreed trade agreement with them. So LC, what we are taking the agreed trade transaction into our fold. We are issuing in a structured format, we are issuing the same form of LC to them. What we are saying, you do the shipment as per these terms and conditions. So what is the role of seller? Seller has to comply the trade stipulations in LC and has to make the shipment, as it is called compliant shipment. And what he has to do, the moment shipment is done, he has to take the documents as listed in LC. he has to send all the documents to LC opening bank or LC issuing bank. That's all. So merchandise will go to the party, documents will go to the bank, and bank will never deal with merchandise. Once the documents are perfect as per LC, seller will get the payment whether cargo comes or not. In simple terms, once the documents complying LC are submitted, we have to pay the bank. We have to pay the money. So so LC is safeguarding the interest of both buyer and seller. Common question. LC is protecting whom? It is safeguarding both the interest of the buyer and seller. So always LC is issued by opening buyer's bank only in favor of seller. So what seller has to do? Seller has to send documents, merchandise to the buyer, documents to the bank. That's all. He will get the payment. So this is about the. Then when I am opening an LC, whether I am taking any risk, risk is there. I am taking the risk of the customer. Very, very important. Opening of LC is having customer credit risk. It is a contingent risk is there because I have opened LC. That party has made shipment. As per terms, he has sent me the bill, documents, customer account, OD account, zero balance. I can't say no because I have to honor the bill. So when we are opening LC, we are taking contingent risk of the customer. So it is like a credit facility only. We have to do normal appraisal of credit. It's a because it may any moment it may crystallize into fund-based facility because you can't. That is called when LC is opened. When a bill came, the overseas exporter has sent the goods. Our fellow importer, he don't have money to make the payment. Then we have to make the payment. That is called devolvement of LC because so that means you see till that time LC is a non-fund based limit because no risk is there. We got commission everything. But when customer is not having money, we call it as devolvement of LC. That means we have paid. Devolvement of LC means our liability became fund based. Then any security is there, we go for surpass all these things beyond this. Okay, we'll discuss later. Some others will take care. So this is the risk. When we're opening LC, don't think simply we're opening LC. Not just issuing 700 in Swift. It is risk is there. So this is called opening of LC. Now what is meant by advising of LC? I told you SWIFT is the mechanism for transferring all foreign exchange all documents in foreign trade. And SWIFT is a costly affair. All banks can't afford SWIFT. So Lakshmi Vilas Bank, Citizen Bank, all these small banks, they can't afford SWIFT relationship with all big banks. At the same time, some customers may be dealing with them also in foreign exchange. So if a customer of Citizen Bank is dealing with an export, he wants to export something to the France or Dubai something. They are sending LC. They can't send LC to Citizen Bank directly to SWIFT. So what they will do? They will send the LC to Canara Bank. Canara Bank will download the LC and advise the same thing to Citizen Bank. That means here we are just doing a postman job. Canara Bank gains millions of rupees. LC advising is one of our major source of non-interest income because we advise a lot of LCs for our customers and for other bank customers also. Those who are in foreign exchange branches, you might be knowing now how much charges were. This is nothing but no work. Just we are having on SWIFT. SWIFT means we are having one digital authenticated service. We daily we download lots of SWIFT messages, LC messages. We simply authenticate because SWIFT is authenticated message. We give it to customer bank, Citizen Bank customer signing it. We are getting lakhs of rupees. Advising is a very simple task. There is no risk at all for the bank. So it is always any customers are there, you solicit. Very important. At the end of the day, we want more business because clear. Whatever we are learning, we are doing unless our bank has to flourish. Okay. So this advising is no risk job. Try to canvas more customers there. Okay. Now coming to confirming. What is meant by confirming the bank? This is one more risky. LC is having 5 types of nature. LC opening, advising, confirming, reimbursing. So when I am confirming, what is the risk? What is meant by confirmation of LC? I will tell you. Buyer is from LVB. Seller is from PNB. Now buyer is selling. He is issuing LVB from LVB to PNB is that fellow. You know LVB story now. Seller don't want LVB LC now. Okay. I don't want to trust this bank also. I don't trust the buyer. I don't trust the bank also. I don't do it. then what he has to do? Then LVB will come to Canara Bank. Some relationship we're having a. So what Canara Bank will do? Canara Bank will say, I am confirming this LC issued by LVB. So what it is now? Punjab National Bank, Canara Bank is okay for them. So here, this is called confirmation of LC. This is also one of the income tools for the bank. Normally, banks will not fail. This is an exceptional case. So confirmation means some all banks will not accept LCs from big banks. Lakshmi Vilas Bank, Union Bank, all these banks. Such banks may need confirmation. So when we are confirming the LC, what is the risk we are taking? We are taking the risk of counterparty bank. If that bank doesn't pay, tomorrow a shipment happened from Delhi to Chennai. This LVB is not in a position to pay the amount. Canara Bank has to pay. That means confirmation is having credit risk. Then fourth one is reimbursing. Now LBV issue have confirmed. So what they will say, yeah, they may have account with us. They may say that you give the documents to Canara Bank Delhi branch. If everything is okay, they will pay. Suppose LVB is not in a position to verify the LC terms, all these things. So instead of sending LVB Chennai, you please send the documents to what they will say. Reimbursing bank means what they will say, you are in PNB Delhi because we are in Chennai LVB. Instead of sending documents all the way to Chennai, we are having tie-up with Canara Bank Nehru Place some branch. You send the documents there. Already LC is confirmed by Canara Bank only. They will check the document. Now confirmation also not required. We'll send a copy to LC to Canara Bank. If everything is as per the LC terms, they will make payment. That is called reimbursing. Reimbursement means we are not issuing LC, but some bank is asking us to make payment against their LC when presentation comes to make faster payment. So what we are doing here, there is no risk for us if we are checking, but operational risk is there. If you don't scrutinize the documents perfectly, so some LC, some mistake is there. You have made the payment. Then what LVB will say? This document is mistake is there. LC documents must be compliant. There should not be any discrepancy. This is very serious. Discrepancy means discrepancy. Some small wording change also discrepancy. You can deny the payment. LC is a double-edged weapon. So you must be very careful. So in such case, what happens? If when we are reimbursing, there is no risk at all. We are also doing one postman job. Plus, we are doing some ticking job. We are checking the documents and paying money. By chance, we miss any major discrepancy means tomorrow LBB will not reimburse us, or they may claim from us, then we are having operational risk. Because so these four, I think, hope you understood. Na? One is LC opening, second is LC advising, third is LC confirming, fourth is reimbursing. So these are the four, all four, because LC business is holy cow. Whatever you do, you'll get multiple avenues of income. So now one question: when you are opening LC, our customer will be always importer. When you are advising LC means our customer will be always exporter. Opening of LC will be done only for importers. Advising of LC will be done for whom? Exporters. Very important. This is very, very important. So LC mechanism I understand. So opening of LC, risk of the customer bank is taking. Advising of LC, there is no risk. Confirming of LC, risk of the counterparty bank we are taking. When we are reimbursing the LC, we are taking only operational risk. That's all. Nothing is there. But any mistake happens, we are also held responsible. Clear? These are the different types of how to handle LC. Now, coming to other important aspect, when because normally very important, exporters once they get LC, that means they have opened one, they got one export LC means, or export order means they have the right to avail PC. Sir, sir, may I continue, sir? Okay, na? Hello? 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 After 90 days, carry on, sir? Huh? Okay, okay. Just because I can't see the other inputs. I'm in full screen mode. Okay, sir. Okay. I'll continue. Okay. Okay, thank you. Friends, will be discussing about FEMA Act. Very important. Yesterday I told you what is the definition of residential status in India, because this is very important. FEMA is very small booklet. Most of the people can think it's a very big act. It is a small booklet. You can see only how many chapters are there? 7 chapters are there, and just 20 pages booklet. Out of it, nothing is there. Only if you go through it, also very simple, because very simple booklet. But from exam point of view, common question they're asking multiple times. In what section the status of resident Indian is defined? Very important. It is section 2. Section 2 only they have given definitions. Section 2V, very important question. Section 2V only it is defined. And as for FEMA, person includes you. Section 2U defines the nature of entities who are authorized to do foreign exchange transactions: individual, Hindu undivided family, company, firm, everybody. These are the 7 items they have given: agency, office, or branch owned or controlled by such person. These are the 7 persons who are authorized, who are called persons under FEMA. Very important. This is a very important definition. Person resident in India is a very section 2V. Common question they're asking. Which section defines residential status for customers? It is FEMA section 2V. V for visa, you remember. Here, there, person resident in India. Yesterday I covered non-residents. What is the status? Now today we'll discuss about residents. Very important, because this definition is important for opening NRE account or NRO account. All these things. First, residential status is must to how to ascertain the residential status. So, a person in India for more than a resident is a person residing in India for more than 182 days. This you know why? Because what is the logic between this? Very important. A person residing in India for more than 182 days during when preceding financial year. Logic is even 182 days also not sufficient. 365 by 2, it comes to 182.5. In leap year, 366 by 2, it comes to 183. That means they thought, they framed that if 50% of time, that means per year, 50% is staying in India, you can call him as resident only. This is not Indians, anyone, because it may be foreign national. This because this residential status is not only for Indians, very important. A person resident in India, a person only, they use the word a person only, not Indian. Any foreign national or Indian who is staying in India for more than 182 days, that means 183 days plus. That means simple logic, 50% of time plus during the preceding financial year, he is called resident Indian. But they have given some exceptions. These exceptions only govern whether you can open NRI deposit for a customer or not. Very, very important. And common this is a very simple definition. And every exam we are getting 2 to 3 questions. But 50% of candidates marking them wrong only. Very simple definition. Section 2B only. And the days is 182 plus only. It is not 182. It is just you forget 182. You think of 183 only. Commonly they are doing mistake. It is not 182. It is 183 days plus. One more mistake they are doing. So from these two, 2V and 183 somehow by heart. How is the simple way I told you? It is 366 by 2, 183, 50% of time during when preceding not calendar year, financial year. Then whom does it include? What does not include? These three very important. A person who has gone out of India or stays out of India in either case, for what? For taking up employment outside India. That means he might be in India only for the during entire last year. Suppose one candidate, one person, in March 18th, he got a job in GE. So he went there. Now what is residential status? Last year up to March he is in India only, but March 19th only he went to US for taking a job in GE. That means now he is going there permanently. So he has stayed there in India for more than 93 days. He will not be called as resident. He will be called as non-resident only because he has gone, but he has gone for taking an employment outside India. That means he will not be in a position to come in near future. Second way, he went to India say on 18th March. He left to India to join master's course, to join PhD course in US. That means some vocation business. He is doing some boutique business there. In such case also, even though he is staying more than 100 days last year, you cannot consider him as resident Indian or Indian resident. Indian resident is the best word. Indian resident you can't consider. Very, very important. These two exceptions you must be aware, because even though he is staying there in India for the law, suppose if, for example, a person went to US only in March 1st, 2020. That means he has stayed more than 330 days in India only. Even then, if he went outside India for employment or any education, masters, PG is doing, or any business he is doing, or any other purpose, in such circumstances, as you indicate that his intention to stay outside India, uncertainty. Some girl went on marriage, neither job nor vacation. Somebody married a US girl and went, or somebody married a US boy and went there on March 31st only. That means these three exceptions, you can't give them residential status because you can open them NRE account. A student, you can open NRE account. A girl married to US boy, even though just now she is leaving, eligible for NRE account. An employee leaving, even though he is staying in India for the last year, entire year, even though one day he is leaving, 31st March he left India. Last time a question came, 31st March a student left India. Can you open NRE account for him? Yes, very important. Because entire India, last year he stayed in India only. But 31st March he left India. No problem. You can open NRE account for him. Because the intention to stay is there, permanently outside India is there. So these three exceptions you must bear in mind. That's why for these type of customers, you can open NRE account. Same way, one more question, very important question for 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. A couple went to US for babysitting. They went last April. They returned only in a month of this March. This March they returned. Almost 330 days. They stayed with their daughter and granddaughter. Can you open them NRE account? Whether they will get resident status, non-resident status? A couple went to US for babysitting to assist their daughter-in-law, daughter for then they went last April. In April 2019 they went. They returned back only in March 2020. Whether you can open NRE account for them? No, because this is also very important exception. Even though here in these three cases, these guys stayed in India, went abroad for permanent stay there, we are opening NRE status. But in such case, in the couple case, there the intention to stay abroad is not there. So even though they stayed for more than 183 days there, you can't open them NRE account. Very, very important. These two, this different because these exceptions only very important. Once you understand this concept, whom to open NRE account? You can open NRE account for Indian citizens, PIOs, then who are PIOs? What means by person of Indian origin? That also will cover the Monday, sir. PIO, Indian spouses are there. There are three types of PIOs. Indian spouse, PIO spouse are there one time because you can open Indians, PIOs, Indian spouse, PIO spouse. 4 types of category customers you can open NRE account. Sania Mirza, you can open account. Sania Mirza husband Shoaib Malik, which type of what type of account you can open, sir? Priyanka Chopra husband, Nick Jonas, what account you'll open for him? We'll discuss on Monday, okay? Priyanka husband, Yuvraj Singh wife, Sania Mirza husband, all these customers, what type of account you will open? NRE or domestic SB account or NRO account. We will discuss on Monday. Okay. So this is very important because this residential status, every exam, 2 to 3 questions we are getting. But most of the guys are answering wrong because very easy, because foreign exchange, the topic is very vast. From exam point of view, they're asking only same topics every exam. This residential status, section 2 fee, that Incoterms, all common terms. What is the bill buying rate? Some standard questions are there. They are not going beyond these questions. So you don't fumble, simple. This section 2 by heart. So that couple you should not open as NRE account because there is no intention to stay abroad. For these 3 candidates, even though they left India only on 31st March last year, this year, you can open an NRE account for them because the intention to stay away from is there. Same way, one more thing they have given, very important. This B also, because a person who has to come or stay in India otherwise other than, because person resident in India means a first definition what they have given, a person staying in India up to 183 days, but does not include A and B. What is B? B also very important. A person who has come or stay in India otherwise than for taking an employment, because for employment if is coming, for carrying a business in India or for any other purpose in such circumstances would indicate intention to stay in India for uncertain period. These, because a person who has come and stay, this is also very important exception. Basing on this only, we can open NRO accounts. Very, very important. A person who has come to or stays in India in either case, otherwise than whom? Who came for employment, all foreign employees, you can't open what this one is, that this one, okay. All foreign employees, you can't call them residents. For carrying India business, all business, tourist, vocation, they are coming, they are staying for more than 90 days also, you can't open them this resident domestic account. Okay, NRO can only open. Any carcass would indicate his intention to stay for an uncertain period. If he is staying these 3 customers, you can't give them residential status because uncertain, any employee, foreign employment, we can't give them domestic SB status. For carrying India business, all these things, travel, all these things, you can't give, even though he is touring India for the last 6 months, 7 months. We give only visa for 6 months. Even though if he is staying extended visa, you can't consider him as a resident because he came up for employment. No chance of giving residential status. Otherwise, then any foreign vocation, you can't give him residential status. For any other purpose, in such circumstances, as would indicate his stay for an uncertain period. These 3 are exceptions. So these two paras, I have shared this to sir. You just by heart these two paras, you will get at least 2 questions from this para. Because the pattern is common. Because the question is who are eligible for opening NRE account, who are not eligible for opening NRE account. This is based on these 2 persons only. Where B also very important exception. A person who has to come to stay in India in either case, otherwise, then in either case, then this, because this is very important. Okay, understood now? Here, these 3 are excluded. Here, all others you can't give except these 3. Okay, very important. Okay, these 2 paras very important. Frame question on this Monday. Be thorough. And all non-individuals have covered on last day, 19th have covered non-residents, non-individuals. Individuals, these A and B, you must be thorough. D will define the status of NRA and NRO account. And friends, now coming to remittances part, 10 minutes time is there. Very important. How much? Because whether I can open an SB account with my NRI brother jointly. Common question and common mistake you are doing. Whether I can open a domestic SB account with my non-resident Indian brother. Is it permitted or not? Last time also this question came, most of the guys answered no. It is permitted. The logic is, as I told, NRI accounts, what is the use of NRI account? In domestic SB account, I can send abroad only $250,000 per annum under LRS. In NRO account, I can remit up to 10 lakh, 1 million USD abroad. In NRE account, there is no restriction. Whatever amount is there, I can remit abroad. So government, because government is permitting free trade of free flows of foreign currency, but I told you not that much free, but not fully, because current account transaction up to 250 were allowing LRS either CAT or current account $250,000 per annum. We are allowing them to send. Your NRO account $10 lakh, 1 million are sending. NRE account unlimited. So that means if my NRI brother opens NRE account, he can repatriate whatever amount is there to his foreign account. If that fellow is opening giant account, SB account with me, country is gaining. He can send only $250,000. In such way, imagine all the regulations, because India don't want to, because always I told you, we want export Niryat Bandhu or Ayat. We want inward remittances more. We are not in favor of either imports, more imports, or more outward remittances. Once you understand this concept, we can answer any question comfortably. It is Niryat Bandhu, export promotion, because we always love inward remittances. So because and subject to some restrictions are there, but when the money is going out, we are tight. NRI account, how much money you can send? There is no restriction, unlimited amount you can send. NRO account, how much you can send? Only 1 million per calendar per year. That means only 10 lakh dollars you can send. SB account, how much you can send? Automatic route only 2.5 lakhs. So if my NRI brother is opening SB account with me, whether India is losing or gaining, India is gaining, because this fellow, if he opens NRE account, he can remit whatever money is there in his account. If he is opening an SB account with me, he is only losing, he is forfeiting his right to repatriate any amount. He is only shackling himself. I am not bothered. I will permit. So opening of SB account with NRIs is permitted. Very important. I can joint account by domestic. If NRI is joining me as a domestic, I am not at all bothered. It is rather good for me. So this is a common question, very, very important. Clear? So this is very important. Definite question. You can open SB account jointly with non-residents. Clear? When Sania Mirza husband, I told you whether you can open Shoaib Malik NRE account, because citizens of Bangladesh and Pakistan, when you are opening any account, you need specific concurrence of RBI permission. Priyanka Chopra husband, no permission required. Yuvraj Singh wife, no permission required. But Sania Mirza husband, you require permission. Why? Because she is from Pakistan. When Pakistan and Bangladesh, you have to be cautious. You have to obtain permission from RBI. Same way, whether Donald Trump can purchase any flat in India, is it possible for Donald Trump to buy a residential flat in India? Yes. Is it whether Pakistan Imran Khan can buy? No. Because all India has banned a very important definite question. All neighboring countries, citizens of all neighboring countries plus North Korea and Iran are prohibited to hold real estate from India. Otherwise permitted. You can even finance a housing loan for Donald Trump. No problem. He is not barred. Very good. I understood now, because there is no legal bar. But citizens of our neighboring countries, North Korea and This one, Iran, you are not proposed to permit any real estate holdings by these countries. For our neighboring countries, China, all the China, Maldives, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all these countries, we are prohibiting. Sri Lanka, all this. Remaining all, we are free country. They can buy in real estate. Other than plantations, other than chit fund business, all these things, other than TREDS, they are permitted to do any transaction. Okay, friends. Now we can current account transactions. So just I'll quickly cover. Yesterday I told you schedule 1. What are the banned transactions means definitely very important. Schedule 1 transactions are fully banned. I told you under current account. Schedule 1 transaction plus travel to Nepal and Bhutan, very important. These transactions are banned. No foreign exchange can be released. Then what is meant by schedule? Prior approval of Government of India for Schedule 2 transaction. Prior approval of RBI for Schedule 3 transaction. So this also I have shared. Very simple. This only you see. Apart from Nepal, Bhutan, there how many items are there? Only 8 items are there. Completely banned. Completely banned items. Only 8 are there. One is remittance out of lotteries. Lottery earnings you can't remit. Same way you can't remit income from racing, riding, etc. to outside or inward. This is prohibited. Purchase of lottery tickets you can't remit funds. Very important. These are banned items. Definitely question will come. Then payment of commission on exports was very important. I am exporting something to US and I am saying that I am paying commission. But whom I am paying commission? To my own sister company I am paying commission. That means I discuss trade-based money law. TBML is one common abbreviation they are asking. What is TBML? Trade-based money laundering. Definite question. One question in any level, some level. Trade-based money laundering and FATF are common question they are asking. To prevent trade-based money laundering only, all these things are there. So I can't pay commission on exports made towards equity investment in joint ventures only owned by me only. By subsidiaries, all these things. So that I should not round trip. Same way, dividend balancing applied, such companies can't remit dividend. And we are having some rupee state rate route. Such countries more than 10%, you can't pay commission. Tobacco, Russia, all these countries are having some state rate route. In such countries, such cases, you can't pay commission more than 10%. Callback services, very important question. This is call centers. We are completely banned. Remittances completely banned. Very important. Definite question. Callback services. All types of remittances banned. Okay. NRSR account is banned. Then what is Schedule 2 transaction? These transactions not banned, but they are regulated by Government of India. Just quickly cover it. They are 11, 10, 9 transactions now because 8 and 7 are removed. Nothing is there. Common question. Cultural troops, even though the transaction is simple, suppose a musical party, suppose from any film stars, all these things, they want to culture some musical night, all these things in Dubai, Singapore. They are asking you to remit $5,000. It is not possible because any cultural tour needs Ministry of HRD concurrence. You can release them foreign exchange only when they produce the relevant permission. Very important. Even though amount is $100, if it is cultural tours, you should not release. It is scheduled to transaction. It is current account transaction only. Same way, any advertisement foreign print media, very important. Other than the promotion of tours, Indian government investment can go but state and PSUs, no problem. Other than these permitted, any foreign media advertisement you should not remit. Very important question. These scheduled 2 transactions somehow 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 you go through, sir, because definitely questions will. That's why I shared entire copy to you. These 8 items, 1 or 2 simple questions will come. Same way, remittance of freight, you need concurrence of surface transport. Same way, multimodal shipping required. Very important. TV channel transponders, even $1,000 also if you want to remit, you need INB ministry clearance. Container detention charges, all these things. You need remittance of prize money also. Very, very important. Above 1 lakh, you need human resources development concurrence. These are the Schedule 2 transactions. They are not banned, but they need concurrence of various ministries. One is culture. Main important is foreign advertisement and foreign cultural tools. These require concurrence of these two agencies. Okay. Then what is meant by Schedule 3 transaction? These are not banned at all. Very few transactions are there. Everything is permitted. Under LRS, for all these purposes, up to 2,50,000 permitted. The expenses, everything. If the party wants to send, suppose education up to 2.5, you can send immediately without RBI concurrence. For any immigration, if you want to take $3 lakh, it is not banned. Very important question. LRS is there up to 2.5 lakh. That means liberalized remittance scheme. If you want to exceed the limit, don't need is not possible. It is possible. I can give 3 lakhs donation also to my brother. 250 and LRS. If it is reaching the LRS, I have to obtain RBI concurrence only. It is not banned. Schedule 3 transactions are not prohibited. Only RBI concurrence required. So any visit, the private visit to any country, up to 2.5 lakhs, LRS, no concurrence required. Beyond 2.5 lakhs also, don't think it is completely banned. No, it is permitted only. But it falls under Schedule 3 transaction. It needs RBI concurrence. Same way, very important question for 4 to 5 and 3 to 4. We can permit donations. Foreign exchange donations are permitted up to how much amount? Very huge amount, exceeding 1% of the foreign exchange, or how much they can send? 50 million, 5 million they can send. That means 50 lakh USD they can send. We can donate. We are that much liberal now. Anybody can donate up to 1% of their foreign exchange earnings, or definite question, or 50 lakhs, whichever is less, they can donate for universities, all these things. If it is exceeding beyond 50 lakhs only, 5 million only, you have to obtain concurrence of RBI. This is Schedule 3 transactions. Only 3 are there. Those exceeding LRS, those donation exceeding 55 million. Third transaction is very important. This way, any real estate firms, they can pay commission for selling their flats abroad, by getting customers from abroad. They can't send more than 25,000 rupees dollars as commission, or commission per transaction. They can't exceed. This is also, if it is exceeding, you have to obtain concurrence. What is more definite question is up to 10 million. That means up to 1 crore. You can send for any consultancy services. Definite question. Every rate is coming. Up to 1 crore. That means $10 million. You just don't confuse. $10 million or 1 crore dollars. You can send for consultancy services in respect of infrastructure projects abroad without any permission. If it is exceeding 1 crore only, you have to obtain RBI concurrence because it's a Schedule 3 transaction. Same way, other than infrastructure projects, for consultancy services, you can remit 1 million. Because we are very liberalized. So you understood that 3 schedules are there. These 3 also you go through definite questions, sir. 100. That's why I'm sharing this actual act, because PPT for this is because I can with some points. How much liberal you have see this definite question. Money is 50 million. 5 million means 50 lakh they can send. 5 crores. This one, this much amount they can send. Here, no, sorry, 1 minute. It is 1 crore. Up to 5 million, 5 million they can send. Up to 5 million means $50 lakh they can send without any permission. Very important. For what? Either 1% of their earnings or $50 lakh, whichever is less, they can send for institutes, everything, investment fund without any concurrence. If it is exceeding 50 lakhs only, they have to obtain permission. Same way, up to 10 lakhs for non-consultancy services, other than infrastructure projects, they can remit without any concurrence of RBI. Very important. 1 crore, 10 million. So this you remember, 10 million, 1 million for consultancy, infra and others, 5 million for this chairs. This one question will definitely come in all levels. Easy question. One is PEMA guidelines, that residential status. Second is this remittance. Then third one is these private transactions. Who has to permit whom? Culture has to be permitted by Cultural Tools, Department of Culture. Foreign print, Ministry of Finance has to permit. Very all on there. Last time this question came, most of them answered it is Ministry of Information Broadcasting. No, foreign print media, even though it's communications, Ministry of Finance, the economic affairs has to permit it. Very important. Then all vessels, everything, Ministry of Surface Transport. All transponders, everything, INB. Even any sport related remittance, it is HRD, Youth and Affairs. Their culture, even. These are definite questions. So, friends, I will wind up. I'll just call sir and wind up, sir. Sir, I can wind up. Okay, thank you. You will close it, sir. I'll come out. Okay.